"You'll never be anything but my son's charity case," Margaret announced at her 70th birthday dinner. He married so far beneath him. Simone smiled, checked her watch, and stood up. "I have somewhere to be." "Running away as usual?" Margaret laughed. 1 hour later, Margaret's phone buzzed. The Tech Industry Awards live broadcast. And the Innovator of the Decade Award goes to Dr. Simone Mitchell. Simone walked onto that stage in front of 50 million viewers. "I want to thank everyone who believed in me, except one person. Margaret, you can keep the charity case speech. I'll keep the $40 million prize. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. David, your tie is crooked." Simone Mitchell stood in front of the bedroom mirror in their Cambridge apartment. She wore a simple black dress. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. She looked at her husband through the reflection. David Mitchell adjusted his tie. He was tall with brown hair and glasses. He wore a dark suit. "Are you sure you want to go tonight?" he asked. Simone checked her watch. It was 6:30 in the evening. "It is your mother's 70th birthday. We should go." David walked over and put his hands on her shoulders. "Tonight will be different. I talked to my mother yesterday. I told her she needs to be respectful. She promised she would behave." Simone turned around to face him. "She has promised before." "I know." David looked uncomfortable. "But this is a big birthday. Important people will be there. She will not make a scene in front of her friends." Simone picked up her purse from the bed. Inside was her phone, her wallet, and her car keys. "We should leave now. The drive to Beacon Hill takes 30 minutes. They walked downstairs to their car. The November air was cold. Simone pulled her coat tight around her body. David drove through Cambridge toward Boston. The streets were dark. Cars moved slowly through traffic. "Simone," David said quietly, "if my mother says anything cruel tonight, we will leave immediately. I promise." Simone looked out the window. She did not answer. They arrived at Beacon Hill at 7 o'clock. Margaret Mitchell's mansion sat on a quiet street. The house was 3 stories tall with brick walls and white columns. Expensive cars were parked along the street. Simone recognized some of them. A black Mercedes belonged to Margaret's friend Patricia. A silver BMW belonged to David's Uncle Thomas. David parked the car. They walked up the stone steps to the front door. Before David could knock, the door opened. Margaret Mitchell stood in the doorway. Margaret was 70 years old. She was tall and thin. Her gray hair was styled perfectly. She wore a white gown and diamond jewelry. Her face was cold. "David, darling, you are here." Margaret kissed David's cheek. Then she looked at Simone. "Hello?" "Hello, Margaret," Simone said. "Happy birthday." Margaret did not smile. She stepped aside to let them enter. "Everyone is in the dining room. We will start dinner soon." The mansion was full of people. Simone counted about 30 guests. They wore expensive clothes and held wine glasses. They talked and laughed in small groups. Some looked at Simone when she walked in. Then they looked away. David's sister, Rachel, was not there yet. She was working a late shift at Massachusetts General Hospital. Simone wished Rachel were here. Rachel was the only person in David's family who was kind to her. A waiter offered Simone a glass of wine. She took it, but did not drink. She followed David into the dining room. A long table filled the center of the room. White candles sat in silver holders. The plates were fine china. Everything looked perfect. Margaret walked to the head of the table. "Everyone, please find your seats. We are ready to begin." Simone looked for her name card. She walked along the table. Her card was at the far end. away from everyone else, away from David. She sat down in her chair. David's card was near his mother, at the other end of the table. He looked at Simone. His face showed he was angry, but he sat down in his assigned seat. The guests filled in around the table. A woman with blonde hair sat next to Simone. Her name was Patricia. She was Margaret's oldest friend. Patricia looked at Simone. "So what do you do, dear?" "I am a software engineer," Simone said. "Oh, how nice." Patricia's voice was flat. She did not ask any more questions. She turned to talk to the man on her other side. Waiters brought food. The first course was soup, then salad, then fish with vegetables. Margaret talked loudly from her end of the table. She told stories about old Boston families. She talked about her late husband, who was a federal judge. She talked about legacy and tradition and proper backgrounds. Simone ate quietly. She checked her watch. It was 8:15. After the main course, Margaret stood up. She tapped her wine glass with a spoon. The room became quiet. Everyone looked at her. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," Margaret said. She smiled at her guests. 70 years is a significant milestone. I am grateful to be surrounded by people who matter. People from good families. People with proper values. Margaret's eyes moved across the room. They stopped on Simone. "Some people marry for love," Margaret continued, "and some people marry for money, and some people marry charity cases and waste their potential." The room became completely silent. No one moved. Patricia looked down at her plate. The man across from Simone shifted in his chair. Margaret kept talking. "My son David graduated from Harvard Law School. He could have done anything. He could have joined a top law firm. He could have married someone from a respectable family. Instead, he married someone so ordinary. Someone who came from nothing and will always be nothing." David started to stand up. His face was red. His hands gripped the edge of the table. Simone reached across and touched David's arm. He looked at her. She shook her head slowly. He sat back down. Simone looked at her watch. It was 8:30. She stood up calmly. She picked up her purse. She walked toward the door. Her footsteps were the only sound in the room. Behind her, Margaret laughed. The sound was loud and sharp. "Look at that! She is running away. She always runs away because she has no backbone. She knows I am right." Some of the guests laughed nervously. Others looked uncomfortable. Simone walked through the front door. She went down the stone steps. She got in her car. Her hands shook, but her face stayed calm. She started the engine. She drove away from Beacon Hill. Margaret's laughter still rang in her ears. But tonight Margaret would learn something. Simone was not running away. She was running toward something. Simone drove through the dark Boston streets. Her car moved past brick buildings and streetlights. She took a deep breath. Her phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen. She did not answer. Not yet. She turned left onto Massachusetts Avenue. The road was busy with Friday night traffic. Red brake lights glowed ahead of her. She checked her watch again. 8:45. She had time. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Simone, I am so sorry." David's voice was tight with anger. "I should have left with you. I should have stopped her." "It is fine," Simone said. She kept her eyes on the road. "It is not fine. What my mother said was cruel and unacceptable. I am leaving right now. Where are you?" "I am driving to the convention center." "The convention center? Why?" "I have something I need to do tonight. Something important." There was silence on the phone. Then David spoke. "Is tonight the night?" "Yes." "Do you want me to come?" Simone thought about this. Stay with your mother's guests for 30 more minutes. Then you can leave. Come to the convention center if you want. But David, tonight I need to do this on my own. I understand. I love you. I love you too. She hung up. She drove past Harvard Square and continued toward the Boston Convention Center. Simone thought about 5 years ago. She remembered the day she started her company. It was a cold morning in January. She rented a small office in Kendall Square. The office had 3 desks, old computers, and 1 window. She sat alone at her desk and wrote the first lines of code for her software. She remembered working through the night. The office was quiet, except for the sound of her keyboard. She drank coffee and stared at her computer screen. She was building artificial intelligence software that could help doctors diagnose diseases faster. The software could look at medical images and blood tests and find patterns that human doctors might miss. It could save lives, but nobody believed in her idea at first. She remembered her first meeting with investors. She walked into a conference room in downtown Boston. 5 men in suits sat around a table. She presented her software idea. She showed them research. She explained how hospitals could use her technology. One investor interrupted her. "How old are you?" 27, Simone answered. "And you think you can build medical software?" Another investor laughed. "Do you have any idea how complicated that is?" "Yes," Simone said. "I studied computer science at MIT. I worked in medical research for 2 years. I know exactly how complicated it is." The investors looked at each other. One of them spoke. "We do not think this is a good investment. Thank you for your time." Simone left the meeting. She did not cry. She went back to her small office and kept working. She remembered going to banks to ask for business loans. Bank officers looked at her applications. They asked questions. Then they said no. One officer told her that her business plan was too ambitious. Another officer said she did not have enough experience. Another officer just shook his head and pushed her papers back across the desk. Simone applied to 12 banks. All 12 said no. She remembered a technology conference in San Francisco. She flew there to present her software. She stood at a small booth in a huge conference hall. Hundreds of engineers walked past. Most of them were men. Most of them were white. They looked at her booth and kept walking. A few stopped to ask questions. When she answered, they looked surprised that she knew what she was talking about. One man asked if she was the secretary. Another man asked where the real engineer was. Simone smiled politely. She answered their questions. Then they left. But some people believed in her. She found 3 investors who looked at her software and understood its value. They gave her money to keep building. She hired 2 engineers who were brilliant and hardworking. The 3 of them worked 16-hour days in that small office. She remembered the day she told David about her company. They were sitting in their apartment. It was late at night. David was reading case files for work. Simone was writing code on her laptop. "David, I need to tell you something," she said. He looked up. "What is it?" "I started a company. I am building medical software. I have been working on it for 6 months." David closed his files. "That is amazing! Why did you not tell me sooner?" "Because I wanted to make sure it was real first. I wanted to make sure I could actually do this." "Of course you can do this. You are the smartest person I know." He smiled. "Tell me everything." Simone explained her software. She told him about the investors. She told him about her small team. Then she said something else. "David, I do not want to tell your family about this, not yet." "Why not?" "Because your mother already thinks I am not good enough for you. If I tell her I am starting a company and she watches me struggle, she will use it against me. She will tell everyone I failed. I need to build something real first, something she cannot dismiss." David was quiet. Then he nodded. I understand. But Simone, you do not have to prove anything to my mother. I know. But I need to prove it to myself. And one day, the truth will speak louder than any words she ever said about me. David agreed to keep her secret. The company grew. After 1 year, Simone signed her first major contract with Massachusetts General Hospital. The hospital agreed to test her software in their emergency department. The software worked. It helped doctors diagnose heart problems and strokes faster. Patients got treatment sooner. Lives were saved. Simone's team celebrated in their small office with cheap champagne and pizza. After 2 years, Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore called. They wanted to use her software. Then Mayo Clinic in Minnesota called. Then Stanford Hospital in California. Her company grew from 3 people to 15 people. She moved to a bigger office. She hired more engineers. After 3 years, a technology magazine wrote an article about her software. The article called it revolutionary. The article said Simone Mitchell was changing healthcare. Margaret never read that article. David's family never knew. Every time Margaret insulted Simone, Simone went back to her lab and worked harder. When Margaret forgot to invite her to Christmas dinner, Simone closed a $10 million deal. When Margaret told her country club friends that Simone had no real career, Simone was signing contracts with major hospitals across America. Now, her company had 50 employees. Her software was used in 3 major hospital systems. She had saved thousands of lives. And tonight, she was nominated for 5 awards, including the biggest award in technology. Simone's car turned onto Summer Street. She saw the Boston Convention Center ahead. The building was enormous, with glass walls and bright lights. Television trucks were parked outside. Cameras and reporters filled the sidewalk. Red carpets led to the entrance. Simone parked her car. She looked at herself in the mirror. She touched her hair. She took a deep breath. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her team. "We are waiting for you backstage. You can do this." Simone got out of her car. She walked toward the convention center. Lights flashed. Music played inside. She could hear voices and laughter. She walked through the entrance. The lobby was filled with people in elegant clothes. She showed her identification to security. They checked her name on a list and pointed toward a door marked backstage. Simone walked through the door. Her team was waiting. 3 engineers stood together near a row of chairs. When they saw Simone, they rushed forward. Maria was the first to reach her. She was a tall woman with black hair pulled back in a ponytail. She hugged Simone tightly. "You made it," Maria said. "We were worried about the time." "I am here." Simone hugged her back. James came next. He was a young man with glasses and a nervous smile. "How are you feeling? Are you ready for this?" "I think so." Simone looked around the backstage area. It was a large space with bright lights and busy people. Stage managers talked into headsets. Other award nominees stood in small groups. Everyone wore formal clothing. Everyone looked important. The 3rd engineer was Thomas. He was older than the others with gray hair and kind eyes. He put his hand on Simone's shoulder. "No matter what happens tonight, we are proud of you. We are proud of what we built together." "Thank you." Simone felt her throat tighten with emotion. "I could not have done any of this without all of you." A woman with a clipboard walked over. She wore all black and had a headset. "Simone Mitchell?" "Yes." "I am Sarah. I am the stage coordinator. Your dressing room is ready. You need to change into your formal gown. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. Simone followed Sarah to a small dressing room. A blue gown hung on the wall. Simone had bought it 2 weeks ago. She tried it on once and then hung it in her closet. She did not let herself think too much about tonight. She did not want to get her hopes up. She changed out of her black dress and into the blue gown. The fabric was soft and elegant. She looked at herself in the mirror. For a moment, she did not recognize herself. She looked successful. She looked important. She thought about Margaret's words from an hour ago. Someone so ordinary. Someone who came from nothing. Simone took a deep breath. She walked back to where her team waited. Maria's eyes went wide. "You look beautiful." "The ceremony is starting soon," Sarah said. "Follow me. I will take you to your seats." Simone and her team walked through a corridor and through another door. They entered the main hall. The space was enormous. 2,000 red seats filled the room. A massive stage stood at the front, with screens on both sides. Lights hung from the ceiling. Cameras were positioned throughout the hall. People filled almost every seat. Simone recognized some faces. Tech leaders from companies in Silicon Valley. Engineers from Seattle. Investors from New York. These were the most important people in technology. Sarah led them to seats in the 5th row. "These are your seats. Good luck tonight." Simone sat down between Maria and Thomas. James sat next to Maria. They all looked around at the hall. Music played softly through speakers. People talked and laughed. Photographers moved through the aisles taking pictures. The lights dimmed. The music stopped. A man walked onto the stage. He wore a black suit and had perfectly styled gray hair. His face appeared on the giant screens. "Good evening, everyone," the host said. His voice filled the hall. "Welcome to the annual Tech Innovators Awards. Tonight, we celebrate the people who are changing our world through technology. We have nominees from 43 countries. We have 2,000 guests here in Boston, and 50 million people watching around the world on television and streaming platforms." The audience applauded. Simone's heart beat faster. 50 million people watching. She had not let herself think about that number until now. "Let us begin," the host said. "Our first award tonight is Best Educational Technology." The screens showed video clips of different software programs that helped students learn. Then the host opened a gold envelope. He announced the winner. A woman from a company in Austin, Texas, walked onto the stage. She accepted her award and gave a short speech. The audience applauded. More awards were announced. Best Transportation Innovation. Best Environmental Technology. Best Consumer Product. Each time, someone different walked onto the stage. Each time, the audience applauded. Then the host spoke again. "Our next award is Best Healthcare Innovation. This category recognizes technology that is saving lives and improving medical care." Simone's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. The screens showed video clips. One clip showed her software. It showed doctors using her program to analyze medical images. It showed a hospital room where her technology helped diagnose a patient's problem quickly. The host opened the envelope. "The winner is Mediscan AI, Simone Mitchell." The audience stood up. Everyone applauded. The sound was enormous. Maria grabbed Simone's hand and squeezed. "Go! Go!" Simone stood up. Her legs felt weak. She walked down the aisle toward the stage. The lights were bright. Cameras flashed. She climbed the stairs. The host shook her hand and gave her a crystal trophy. It was heavy and cold in her hands. She walked to the microphone. 2,000 faces looked up at her. Cameras pointed at her. She thought about 50 million people watching. "Thank you," Simone said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "This award belongs to my entire team. We built this software because we believe technology can save lives." Thank you to every hospital that trusted us. Thank you to every patient whose life we helped save." She walked off stage. Her team hugged her when she returned to her seat. Other people around them congratulated her. Simone put the trophy on the floor, by her feet. Her hands were shaking. The ceremony continued. More awards were announced. Simone tried to focus, but her mind was racing. Then the host spoke again. "Our next award is Best Artificial Intelligence Development." Simone's breath caught. The screens showed different AI programs. Her software appeared again. The host opened the envelope. "The winner is Mediscan AI, Simone Mitchell." The audience applauded again. Simone stood up and walked back to the stage. This time she felt less nervous. The host handed her a second crystal trophy. She gave another short speech thanking her team and her investors. Then she returned to her seat. James was grinning. "2 awards! You won 2 awards!" "We won 2 awards," Simone corrected him. The ceremony continued. Time moved strangely, fast and slow at the same time. Simone checked her watch. 9:30. Then the host announced another award. Fastest growing startup. The screen showed companies that had grown quickly in the past year. Simone's company appeared on screen. The video showed her office in Kendall Square. It showed her 50 employees working at their desks. The host opened the envelope. "The winner is Mediscan AI, Simone Mitchell." The audience stood up this time. Everyone applauded loudly. People were starting to notice her. Simone walked to the stage for the 3rd time. The lights seemed even brighter. The host handed her another trophy. "Thank you again," Simone said into the microphone. "I am grateful to everyone who believed in our vision. We are just getting started." The applause followed her back to her seat. Her team was laughing and crying at the same time. Other people in nearby seats turned around to congratulate her. Across Boston and Beacon Hill, Margaret's birthday party continued. Guests talked and drank wine in the living room. Margaret told a story about her late husband. She laughed at her own joke. Nobody mentioned Simone. David sat on a chair near the window. His face was dark with anger. He looked at his watch. Back at the convention center, Simone sat down with 3 crystal trophies at her feet. The ceremony continued with other awards. Her phone buzzed with text messages, friends and colleagues congratulating her. She did not look at them yet. Sarah appeared next to Simone's seat. She leaned down and spoke quietly. "Simone, I need you to come backstage. The final award is coming soon." "The Innovator of the Decade Award?" "Yes. It will be announced in 10 minutes. Simone stood up. Her team looked at her. Maria squeezed her hand. "This is the big one." Simone followed Sarah backstage. Other nominees were there too. Engineers from famous companies, people who had built important things. Sarah led Simone to a waiting area with chairs. "Stay here. When they announce the winner, you will hear it through the speakers. If it is you, walk through that door onto the stage." Sarah walked away. Simone sat down on a chair. She was alone now. She could hear the ceremony continuing in the main hall through the speakers. Her heart pounded. 10 minutes. Everything she had worked for came down to 10 minutes. Simone closed her eyes. She thought about her parents in Detroit. Her father worked at the automotive plant for 30 years. Her mother taught elementary school for 25 years. They saved money for years to send her to MIT. She remembered the day they drove her to Boston. Her mother cried in the car. Her father hugged her and said she was going to do great things. Simone thought about her first day at MIT. She walked into her first computer science class. The room was full of students. Almost everyone was white or Asian. Almost everyone was male. The professor asked students to introduce themselves. One by one, they stood up and talked about their high schools and their achievements. Many of them went to expensive private schools. Many of them already knew how to code. When it was Simone's turn, she stood up. "My name is Simone. I am from Detroit. I went to public school. I am excited to be here." A boy next to her whispered to his friend, "Affirmative action." Simone heard him. She sat down and said nothing. But she worked harder than anyone else in that class. She stayed up late in the library studying. She asked questions. She learned. By the end of the semester, she had the highest grade. Maria and James appeared in the doorway of the waiting area. They rushed over and sat on either side of her. "We could not let you wait alone," Maria said. James took Simone's hand. "Whatever happens, we are here." Thomas came through the door too. "We are a team. We wait together." Simone felt tears in her eyes. She squeezed their hands. "Thank you." Across Boston in Beacon Hill, a black car pulled up to Margaret's mansion. Rachel Mitchell stepped out. She wore dark pants and a white shirt. Her hospital identification badge still hung around her neck. She was exhausted from working a 12-hour shift in the emergency department, but she came to her mother's birthday party because Margaret had insisted. Rachel walked up the stone steps and opened the front door. The house was full of voices and laughter. She walked into the living room. Guests stood in small groups. Her mother was near the fireplace talking to 3 women in expensive dresses. Rachel looked around. She did not see Simone. She found David sitting alone by the window. He looked angry. Rachel walked over and sat next to him. "Where is Simone?" David looked at his sister. His jaw was tight. "She left." "Why?" "Because our mother gave a speech at dinner and called Simone a charity case in front of 30 people. She said Simone came from nothing and will always be nothing. She said I wasted my life by marrying her." Rachel's face went pale. "She said that?" "Yes, in front of everyone." "And you stayed here?" Rachel's voice rose. "Why did you not leave with your wife?" "I tried to stand up. Simone stopped me. She wanted to leave alone. She said she had somewhere to be tonight." "Where did she go?" "The Boston Convention Center." Rachel pulled out her phone. She started typing a text message to Simone. "I am texting her right now. I need to apologize." "She might not answer. She is busy tonight." Rachel looked at her brother. "Busy with what?" David paused. Then he spoke quietly. "Rachel, there are things about Simone that our family does not know. Important things. But I cannot tell you. Simone needs to decide when she wants people to know." Rachel sent her text message. She waited. No response. She put her phone in her pocket and looked across the room at Margaret. At the convention center, the lights in the main hall dimmed. The audience became quiet. The large screens lit up. Music began to play. A video started. The video showed hospitals around America. Doctors in white coats working in emergency rooms. Medical equipment beeping. Patients lying in beds. Then the video showed computer screens displaying Simone's software. The AI analyzed medical images. It identified problems that doctors had missed. It provided diagnoses faster than traditional methods. A doctor appeared on screen. "This software saved my patient's life. We would not have caught the problem in time without it." Another scene showed nurses using the software in a hospital in Baltimore. Then doctors in Minnesota. Then doctors in California. The audience watched in silence. The video showed graphs demonstrating how many lives the software had saved. Thousands of patients. The numbers grew across the screen. Then Simone's face appeared. The video showed her working in her lab in Kendall Square. It showed her team of 50 engineers. It showed the modern office building where her company operated. The video explained that Mediscan AI had grown from nothing into one of the most important healthcare technology companies in America. The video ended. The lights came back on. The audience remained quiet for a moment. Then they began to applaud. The host walked back onto the stage. He carried a gold envelope. His face was serious. "That was powerful," the host said. "Technology changes the world, but the best technology saves lives." He held up the gold envelope. "This next award is the most important award we give. The Innovator of the Decade Award recognizes one person who has made extraordinary contributions to technology over the past 10 years. This person has shown vision, determination, and impact. This award comes with a prize of $40 million. The audience murmured. $40 million was a substantial amount of money. 5 companies were nominated this year, the host continued. 5 brilliant teams doing important work, but only one can win. Backstage, Simone sat between Maria and Thomas. James and the rest of her team stood behind her. They all held hands. Simone's heart beat so fast she could hear it in her ears. In Beacon Hill, Margaret stood near the fireplace telling a story about her late husband. "He was a federal judge for 20 years, she said. "He understood legacy and tradition. He understood the importance of family heritage." Her friend Patricia stood next to her. Patricia's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and looked at the screen. Her eyes widened. She turned to the woman next to her and whispered something. That woman pulled out her phone too. Margaret continued talking. She did not notice that several guests were now looking at their phones. She did not notice them whispering to each other. At the convention center, the host looked at the gold envelope in his hand. This decision was not easy. The judges debated for weeks, but one nominee stood out. One person built something truly revolutionary. He slid his finger under the seal of the envelope. The paper ripped open slowly. The audience was completely silent. Every camera in the hall focused on the host. 50 million people around the world watched their screens. The host pulled out the card. He looked at it. A smile crossed his face. He looked up at the audience. "The winner is Simone Mitchell from Mediscan AI." The convention center exploded with sound. 2,000 people jumped to their feet. The applause was deafening. Cameras flashed everywhere. The screens showed Simone's face from the video. Backstage, Maria screamed. James shouted. Thomas pulled Simone to her feet and hugged her. The entire team was crying and laughing at the same time. "Go!" Maria pushed Simone toward the stage door. "Go!" Simone walked through the door. The lights hit her face. The noise was overwhelming. Everyone in the hall was standing and clapping. She walked toward the stage. Her legs moved, but she could not feel them. Everything seemed unreal. She climbed the stairs. The host met her at the top. He shook her hand. His smile was enormous. "Congratulations," he said. He handed her a crystal trophy. It was larger than the other 3. It was heavy and beautifully carved. Then he handed her a check. The paper was oversized for the cameras to see. $40 million was printed in large numbers. The host stepped back. Simone walked to the microphone. The applause continued. She looked out at the audience. Thousands of faces looked up at her. The lights were bright. She could see cameras everywhere. She thought about 50 million people watching around the world. The applause slowly quieted. The audience sat down. The hall became silent. Everyone waited for her to speak. "Thank you," Simone said. Her voice filled the massive hall. "I am honored to receive this award." She paused. Her hands gripped the sides of the podium. 10 years ago, I was a student at MIT. I had an idea for software that could help doctors save lives. I believed technology could make healthcare better. Faster? More accurate? The audience listened. No one moved. But believing in an idea is not enough. I had to build it. I had to work 16-hour days. I had to face people who did not believe in me, investors who said no, banks that refused loans, engineers who doubted me. She looked directly at the cameras. I am a black woman in technology. That comes with challenges. People make assumptions. People judge you before you even speak. But I learned that your work speaks louder than people's assumptions. The audience applauded. Simone waited for them to quiet down. This award belongs to my team. I could not have built this company alone. Maria, James, Thomas, and 47 other brilliant engineers made this possible. Thank you for believing in the mission. She paused and looked down at the check in her hand. I also want to thank my investors who took a chance on me. I want to thank the hospitals that trusted our software. I want to thank my parents who saved money for years to send me to college. They taught me that hard work matters. Simone's voice became stronger. And I want to thank my husband, David. He has supported me every single day of our marriage. He believed in me when I did not believe in myself. The audience applauded again. Simone took a deep breath. This was the moment. She looked directly into the camera in front of her. I want to thank everyone who supported me on this journey. She paused. Everyone except one person. The audience became very quiet. Confused looks appeared on faces. Margaret Mitchell. Simone said the name clearly. She made sure every syllable was heard. For 5 years, Margaret Mitchell has told me that I am not good enough. She told me I came from nothing. She told me I would never be important or successful. She called me ordinary. Tonight, she called me a charity case. Gasps echoed through the hall. People looked at each other. Cameras zoomed in on Simone's face. Margaret Mitchell was wrong. Simone's voice was calm but firm. I built this company not because of her cruelty, but despite it. Every time she insulted me, I went back to my lab and worked harder. Every time she dismissed me, I signed another contract with another hospital. Every time she tried to make me feel small, I built something bigger. The audience was completely silent. Some people had their mouths open. Others were already pulling out their phones. I want young people watching tonight to know something important. Simone looked at the camera. Your worth is not determined by people who refuse to see you. Your value is not defined by people who judge you before they know you. Build something that matters. Do work that helps people. Let your achievements speak for themselves. She held up the check. This $40 million proves that Margaret Mitchell does not get to decide who I am or what I can accomplish. Nobody gets to decide that except me. The audience erupted. Half the people stood up and applauded loudly. The other half sat in shocked silence. Cameras flashed. Reporters in the press section typed frantically on their laptops. Simone stepped back from the microphone. The host walked over and shook her hand again. She walked off stage, carrying her trophy and check. The applause continued behind her. As soon as Simone disappeared backstage, the audience exploded with conversation. Everyone talked at once. Phones came out of pockets and purses. People opened Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Within 30 seconds, Margaret Mitchell's name was trending. Posts appeared. Did you see that speech? Simone Mitchell just called out her mother-in-law on live television. Margaret Mitchell got destroyed. $40 million is the best revenge. News websites posted articles immediately. Tech winner names mother-in-law in acceptance speech. Innovator of the decade reveals 5 years of family cruelty. Who is Margaret Mitchell? The story spread across social media faster than any other story that night. Millions of people shared clips of Simone's speech. The video played on phones and computers around the world. In Beacon Hill, Margaret's phone began buzzing. It buzzed again and again. Text messages and notifications filled her screen. She pulled her phone out of her purse. Her face was confused. She looked at the screen. Patricia pulled out her phone too. Her eyes went wide. She turned to the woman next to her and whispered urgently. That woman looked at her phone and gasped. Around the living room, guests were pulling out phones. They looked at their screens. They whispered to each other. The volume in the room grew louder. Margaret looked at Patricia. "What is happening? Why is everyone on their phones?" Patricia's face was pale. "Margaret, you need to see something." David stood up from his chair by the window. He pulled out his phone. He opened Twitter. Simone's name was everywhere. He saw the video clip of her speech. He saw his mother's name. Rachel pulled out her phone too. She saw the same thing. Her hand went to her mouth. A man near the fireplace spoke loudly. "Does anyone know how to turn on the television?" Margaret's friend Helen walked to the television mounted on the wall. She picked up the remote control and pressed the power button. The screen lit up. She changed channels until she found a news station. The television mounted on the wall. She picked up the remote control and pressed the power button. The screen lit up. She changed channels until she found a news station. The television showed the convention center. It showed Simone standing on stage holding her award. The news anchor was talking excitedly. "This is breaking news from the Tech Innovators Awards. Simone Mitchell just won the Innovator of the Decade Award and $40 million. But her acceptance speech is what everyone is talking about." The screen switched to video of Simone's speech. Her voice came through the television speakers clearly. The entire living room went silent. Everyone stopped talking. Everyone turned to watch. They heard Simone say Margaret Mitchell's name. They heard every word that followed. Margaret stood frozen. The wine glass slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. It shattered. Red wine spread across the white carpet. But Margaret did not look down. She stared at the television screen. Her face turned red, then white. Her hands began to shake. The television continued playing the video. Simone's voice filled Margaret's living room. "This $40 million proves that Margaret Mitchell does not get to decide who I am or what I can accomplish." The news anchor came back on screen. She built this company while facing years of criticism from her own family. Margaret's friend Patricia spoke quietly. $40 million is a substantial prize. Another guest, a man named Robert, cleared his throat. "I read an article about her company in the Wall Street Journal last month. Very impressive work." Helen, who was still holding the television remote, spoke carefully. "Massachusetts General Hospital uses her software. I heard doctors talking about it at a fundraiser." Margaret still could not speak. She stared at the television. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. She looked down at the screen. Notifications filled it. Text messages from friends. Alerts from Facebook and Twitter. Her name was everywhere. She opened Twitter with shaking fingers. The first post she saw was from someone she did not know. "Margaret Mitchell is trending for all the wrong reasons. What kind of person treats their daughter-in-law this way?" Another post. "Imagine being so cruel to someone who went on to win $40 million and save thousands of lives." Another. "Margaret Mitchell is about to learn what happens when you underestimate brilliant women." Margaret's breathing became fast and shallow. She scrolled through more posts. There were hundreds, thousands. Her name was attached to words like cruel, prejudiced, and jealous. The guests in the living room looked at each other. No one knew what to say. The room that had been full of laughter 30 minutes ago was now silent and uncomfortable. David stood up from his chair by the window. He walked to the center of the room. Everyone looked at him. His face was set in hard lines. "I want everyone here to know something," David said. His voice was loud and clear. Simone Mitchell is the most brilliant person I have ever met. She is kind and hardworking, and she has saved thousands of lives with her technology. I have been proud of her every single day of our marriage." He turned to look at his mother. Margaret finally looked away from the television. She looked at her son. Her eyes were wide. "You had 5 years to be kind to my wife," David continued. 5 years to ask her about her work. 5 years to see who she really is. But you chose cruelty instead. You chose judgment and insults. You chose to be small and mean." Margaret opened her mouth, but no words came out. "I am ashamed," David said. His voice cracked. "I am ashamed that I did not defend her more strongly. I am ashamed that I let you treat her this way for so long. I told myself that Simone was strong enough to handle it. But that was an excuse. I should have done more." Rachel stood up from where she was sitting. She walked over to stand next to David. She looked at her mother. "He is right," Rachel said. "We were all wrong about Simone. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. I made polite conversation and pretended not to notice when you were cruel to her. That was wrong." Margaret found her voice. It came out as a whisper. "I did not know about her company. I did not know about any of this." "You did not know because you never asked," David said. "You never wanted to know. You decided who Simone was on the day I brought her home, and you never gave her a chance to be anything different in your eyes." Patricia stood up. She put her hand on Margaret's arm. "Perhaps we should all give Margaret some space. This is a lot to process." "No," David said firmly. "I am done protecting my mother from consequences. She humiliated my wife in front of 30 people tonight. She called Simone a charity case. She said Simone came from nothing. Well, now the whole world knows who Simone really is, and the whole world knows how my mother treated her." He walked toward the door. "I am going to the convention center to find my wife. Rachel, are you coming?" Rachel nodded. She followed David toward the door. Margaret stood up. "David, wait, please, let me explain." David stopped at the door. He turned around. "What is there to explain? I heard what you said at dinner. Everyone heard it." "I was wrong," Margaret said. Her voice was louder now. "I was wrong about her, but I did not know. How could I have known?" "You could have asked," David said simply. "You could have had one conversation with Simone about her life, about her work, about anything that mattered to her. But you never did." He walked out of the mansion. Rachel followed him. The door closed behind them. The remaining guests looked uncomfortable. Robert checked his watch. "It is getting late. I should probably head home." "Yes," his wife agreed quickly. "We have an early morning tomorrow." Helen set down the television remote. "Thank you for hosting, Margaret. It was a lovely evening." One by one, the guests made excuses. They thanked Margaret quickly. They walked toward the door. They did not meet her eyes. Within 20 minutes, the living room was almost empty. Only Patricia remained. She sat down on the couch and gestured for Margaret to sit next to her. Margaret sat down slowly. She looked around at her empty house. "They all left," Margaret said. "Everyone left." "They did not know what to say," Patricia replied. "This is an unusual situation." "An unusual situation," Margaret repeated. She laughed, but the sound was bitter. "My daughter-in-law just won the biggest award in technology and told 50 million people that I am a terrible person." "Are you surprised?" Patricia asked gently. Margaret looked at her oldest friend. "What do you mean?" "Margaret, I have known you for 40 years. I love you. But I have watched the way you treated Simone at dinners and family events. The comments you made, the way you seated her far away from everyone, the way you forgot to invite her to things. I was protecting my son. Were you? Patricia's voice was kind but firm. Or were you protecting yourself? Protecting your idea of what your son's life should look like? Margaret did not answer. She looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. Patricia continued. I met Simone at Christmas 2 years ago. Do you remember? You were in the kitchen, and I talked to her for 10 minutes. She was lovely. She was intelligent and kind. She asked about my grandchildren. She listened when I talked. I thought she was wonderful. You never told me that. Because you did not want to hear it. You had already decided who she was. Margaret's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen. Another notification. Another person commenting on the story. She turned the phone face down on the couch. What do I do now? Margaret asked. Her voice was small. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. I think you need to ask yourself a hard question, Margaret. Why did you treat Simone the way you did? Was it really about protecting David? Or was it about something else? What do you mean? Was it because she is black? Was it because she came from a working-class family? Was it because she did not fit into your world? Margaret's face flushed. I am not a racist. Then why? Patricia asked. Why were you so determined to dislike her? Why did you never give her a chance? Margaret stood up. She walked to the fireplace. She looked at the photographs on the mantel. Pictures of David and Rachel as children. Pictures of her late husband. Pictures of family vacations and holidays. She was not what I expected, Margaret said finally. When David told me he was marrying her, I had a picture in my mind of who his wife would be. Someone from a family I knew. Someone who understood our world. Simone was different from that picture. So you punished her for being different. Margaret turned around. Tears were in her eyes. I did not mean to be cruel. I just wanted what was best for my son. And now? Patricia asked. Do you think you got what was best for David? Do you think he is happy after watching you humiliate his wife tonight? Margaret wiped her eyes. She did not answer. Patricia stood up. She walked over and hugged Margaret. I need to go home. But Margaret, you need to think seriously about this. Your son just walked out of your house. Your daughter-in-law built something extraordinary while you told her she was nothing. The whole world is watching this story. What are you going to do? Patricia left. The front door closed behind her. Margaret stood alone in her living room. The television was still on. A different news anchor was now discussing Simone's achievement. The reporter called Simone an inspiration. She said Simone's story would encourage women in technology everywhere. Margaret sat back down on the couch. She looked around her empty mansion and realized something. She had lost more tonight than just her social standing. She had lost her son's respect, and she might have lost him completely. At the convention center, Simone walked off stage. Her legs felt weak. Her team rushed toward her. Maria got there first and threw her arms around Simone. That was incredible, Maria said. You were so brave. James and Thomas joined the embrace. The entire team surrounded her. They were all talking at once, congratulating her, telling her how proud they were. Simone pulled back from the hug. She looked at their excited faces. Then she looked down at the crystal trophy in her hand. The check for $40 million. Did I do the right thing? She asked quietly. The team went silent. Maria took Simone's hand. What do you mean? I named her on television. I said her name in front of 50 million people. Was that too much? Thomas shook his head. She called you a charity case in front of 30 people. She has insulted you for 5 years. You had every right to speak your truth. But now everyone is talking about her instead of the work we did, instead of the software that saves lives. James spoke up. People can talk about both. Your achievement is real whether Margaret Mitchell's name was mentioned or not. Sarah, the stage coordinator, rushed over. "Simone, there are 20 reporters outside asking for interviews. News networks want you to come on their shows. What should I tell them?" Simone took a deep breath. "Tell them I am done talking for tonight. I will make a statement tomorrow." "Are you sure? This is a big moment. People want to hear from you." "I am sure." Sarah nodded and walked away. Simone turned to her team. "I need a few minutes alone. Is that okay?" "Of course," Maria said. "We will be right here when you are ready." Simone walked to the dressing room. She closed the door behind her. She sat down in a chair and looked at herself in the mirror. She was still wearing the blue gown. The trophy sat on the table in front of her. The check was next to it. She pulled out her phone. 147 text messages. 63 missed calls. She scrolled through them. Messages from colleagues, friends from MIT, engineers she worked with years ago, her parents in Detroit, everyone congratulating her. She opened the message from her mother. "We are so proud of you. We love you. Call us when you can." Simone felt tears in her eyes. She put the phone down. There was a knock on the door. "Simone?" It was David's voice. She stood up quickly and opened the door. David stood there in his suit. His eyes were red. He looked exhausted and emotional. "David." She stepped forward and they held each other tightly. "I am so sorry," David said into her hair. "I am so sorry I did not do this years ago. I should have defended you more. I should have made my mother stop." "You are here now." They pulled back and looked at each other. David touched her face gently. "I told everyone at the party how proud I am of you. I told my mother she had 5 years to be kind and she chose cruelty. Then I left. Rachel left too. Most of the guests left. My mother is alone in that big house right now." "How do you feel about that?" David thought for a moment. "I feel like I finally did what I should have done a long time ago." Simone picked up the trophy from the dressing room table. She showed it to David. Innovator of the decade. David looked at the trophy and then at the check. His eyes went wide. $40 million. $40 million. "Simone, this is extraordinary. You built something incredible. I always knew you would." They heard voices outside the dressing room, reporters shouting questions, camera flashes going off, Sarah's voice telling people to move back. "Can we leave?" Simone asked. "I do not want to talk to reporters tonight. I just want to go home." "Yes, let me find out if there is a back exit." David left the dressing room. Simone changed out of the blue gown and back into her simple black dress. She put the trophy and check carefully into a bag Maria had given her. David came back. "There is a door that leads to the parking garage. Sarah is going to take us there." They found Maria, James, and Thomas waiting outside. Simone hugged each of them. "Thank you for everything. I will see you at the office on Monday." "Enjoy your weekend," Maria said. "You earned it." Sarah led Simone and David through corridors to a back door. They walked down concrete stairs into the parking garage. David's car was parked 3 levels down. They got in and drove up the ramp toward the exit. As they left the garage, they could see reporters and camera crews at the main entrance. Lights were everywhere, but no one noticed David's car leaving through the side exit. They drove through Boston toward Cambridge. The streets were quiet. It was almost 11 o'clock at night. Simone looked out the window at the city lights. David's phone rang. He looked at the screen. "It is Rachel." He answered and put the phone on speaker. "Rachel." "David, I am so sorry." Rachel's voice was thick with emotion. "I should have defended Simone years ago. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. I was afraid of conflict with Mom, but that is no excuse." Simone spoke. "Rachel, thank you for saying that." Simone, you are there? Yes. David and I are driving home. I need you to know that I am ashamed of how I acted. I heard doctors at my hospital talking about revolutionary diagnostic software months ago. I suspected it was your work, but I never asked you about it because I did not want to know. I did not want to face what knowing would mean. Why not? Simone asked. Because if I knew how brilliant you were and how much you were accomplishing, I would have had to confront my mother about the way she treated you. And I was too scared to do that. David spoke. Rachel, it is not too late to do better. I know. Simone, can we have coffee sometime? Can we talk? I want to try to build a real relationship with you. Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she answered, Yes, we can do that. Thank you. I will let you go. Congratulations on your award. You deserve it. Rachel hung up. David and Simone drove in silence for a few minutes. They crossed the bridge from Boston into Cambridge. Their apartment building came into view. Back in Beacon Hill, Margaret sat alone in her living room. The television was still on, but she was not watching it. She was looking at her phone. She opened Facebook. Her news feed was full of posts about Simone. Friends sharing articles. People commenting on the story. She opened her messages. There was a group chat with 5 women from her country club. The women she had lunch with every Tuesday for the past 15 years. Margaret scrolled up to see what they had been saying while she sat in her empty living room. Helen, did you all see what happened at the Tech Awards? Caroline, I am watching it now. Is that really David's wife? Patricia, yes, that is Simone. Helen, $40 million. And she built that company while Margaret was telling everyone she was nobody. Caroline, I met Simone once at a charity event 2 years ago. She was lovely, very kind and intelligent. I always wondered why Margaret disliked her so much. Susan, I think we all wondered. Margaret stared at the messages. These were her closest friends, women she had known for decades, and they had been questioning her behavior behind her back. She scrolled through more messages and posts. People she knew from the country club, neighbors from Beacon Hill, business associates of her late husband. Everyone was talking about the story. Some people defended Margaret, but most did not. One woman wrote, There are always 2 sides to every story. I am sure Margaret had her reasons. But someone else responded, What reasons could possibly justify 5 years of cruelty toward someone who was saving lives? Margaret turned off her phone. She could not look at it anymore. She set it face down on the coffee table. She looked around her living room. The mansion was completely silent. No voices, no laughter, no guests. She stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the dark street. The expensive cars that had been parked outside earlier were all gone. Everyone had left, even Patricia. Margaret walked upstairs to her bedroom. She turned on the light. The room was exactly as she had left it before the party. Her jewelry box sat open on the dresser. Diamond earrings and pearl necklaces. She walked to her nightstand. There was a framed photograph there. The photo was from David and Simone's wedding 5 years ago, but the photo had been cropped. Margaret had taken scissors and cut Simone out of this picture. Only David remained in the frame, smiling in his tuxedo, standing alone. Margaret picked up the photograph. She looked at the cut edge where Simone used to be. She had been trying to erase someone who could never be erased. Margaret set the photograph down. She could not look at it anymore. She turned off the bedroom light and sat on the edge of her bed. She did not sleep. She sat in the dark until morning light came through the windows. At 7 o'clock, her phone started ringing. Margaret picked it up. The screen showed her friend Caroline calling. Margaret answered. Hello? Margaret, I am sorry to call so early. Caroline's voice was careful. I wanted to check on you. I saw what happened last night. Everyone saw what happened last night. Yes. Is it true? Did you really treat Simone the way she described? Margaret closed her eyes. I did not know about her company. I did not know about any of her work. But did you say those things to her? Did you call her a charity case? Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Yes, I said that. Oh, Margaret, Caroline sighed. Why? I need to go, Caroline. Thank you for calling. Margaret hung up before Caroline could respond. The phone rang again immediately. This time it was Helen, then Patricia, then Susan. Margaret did not answer. She turned the phone to silent and set it on the nightstand. She got dressed slowly. She put on a gray dress and pearl earrings. She went downstairs. The living room still showed signs of the party. Empty wine glasses on tables, napkins on chairs, the red wine stain on the white carpet where Margaret had dropped her glass. She made coffee in the kitchen. She turned on the television. The morning news was on. The anchor was a young woman with blonde hair. Our top story this morning continues to be last night's Tech Innovators Awards. Simone Mitchell won the Innovator of the Decade Award and $40 million for her healthcare AI software. But her acceptance speech is what has captured national attention. The screen showed the clip of Simone speaking. Margaret watched her daughter-in-law stand at the microphone and say her name. She heard every word again. The anchor came back on screen. Mitchell's story has sparked a larger conversation about discrimination in elite families. Several prominent women in technology have come forward to share their own stories of facing similar treatment. The screen showed interviews. A woman who worked at a tech company in California talked about her husband's wealthy family rejecting her because she came from a working-class background. An engineer from Seattle described facing racism from her in-laws. A CEO from New York talked about being judged and dismissed by her partner's family for years. Margaret turned off the television. She could not watch anymore. She looked at her phone. 53 missed calls, 122 text messages. She did not want to read them. Across the city in Cambridge, Simone woke up in her apartment. David was still asleep next to her. She got out of bed quietly and walked to the living room. The crystal trophy sat on the coffee table. The check for $40 million was next to it. Her phone showed 214 messages. She scrolled through them. Most were congratulations. Some were from journalists asking for interviews. 3 were from hospitals in other countries asking about her software. One message was from her investor, Robert Chen. Simone, congratulations on the award. I need to talk to you about the company valuation. It has changed significantly overnight. Call me when you can. Simone made coffee and called Robert. He answered on the first ring. Simone, congratulations. Thank you, Robert. I have been getting calls since 6 o'clock this morning. Investors want to put more money into the company. Hospitals from England, Germany, Japan, and Canada want to buy your software. The publicity from last night has been extraordinary. What about the company valuation? It doubled overnight. Your company is now worth $200 million. Simone sat down on the couch. $200 million. She could barely process the number. Are you there? Robert asked. Yes, I am here. That is incredible. It is well deserved. Your software saves lives. Now the whole world knows it. I will send you details later today. Enjoy your weekend. You earned it. They hung up. Simone stared at her phone. David came out of the bedroom. He wore pajama pants and a t-shirt. His hair was messy. Good morning, he said. He kissed the top of her head and sat down next to her. How are you feeling? Robert just called. The company value doubled overnight. That is amazing. David, I never wanted this to become about Margaret. I wanted it to be about the work, about saving lives. It is about the work. People are talking about your achievement. Yes, they are also talking about my mother, but that does not take away from what you built." Simone nodded. She looked at the trophy on the table. "I need to go to the office today. My team deserves to celebrate properly." On a Saturday? They have been working every day for 5 years. One more Saturday will not hurt. At 9 o'clock, Simone drove to her office in Kendall Square. The building was modern, with glass walls and an open lobby. She took the elevator to the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, she heard voices and laughter. The entire office was full. All 50 employees were there. Someone had brought donuts and coffee. Balloons and streamers hung from the ceiling. A banner on the wall said, "Congratulations, Simone." When the team saw her, they erupted in applause and cheers. Maria rushed forward and hugged her. Then James and Thomas. Then everyone else. Simone was surrounded by her team. These people who had worked beside her for years, who had believed in the mission. Someone handed her a cup of coffee. Someone else gave her a donut. The team gathered around. They wanted to hear about the ceremony. They wanted to see the trophy. Simone showed it to them, and they passed it around carefully. After an hour of celebrating, Simone stood on a chair so everyone could see her. The office became quiet. "Thank you all for coming today," Simone said. "Thank you for everything you have done over the past 5 years. We built this company to save lives. That was always the mission. Last night we won awards and recognition. But that is not why we do this work." The team listened. Some of them nodded. "A hospital in Seattle reported last month that our software detected cancer 6 months earlier than traditional methods in 20 patients. Those 20 people started treatment early. They survived because of what we built together." Several people wiped their eyes. Maria was crying quietly. "That is what matters," Simone continued. "Not awards, not prize money, not attention from the media. What matters is that we are saving lives every single day. I am proud of this team. I am grateful to work with all of you." The office erupted in applause. Simone stepped down from the chair. The team went back to celebrating. In Beacon Hill, Margaret finally left her house. She drove to her country club. She needed to get out of the empty mansion. She needed to be around people. She walked into the country club dining room. It was late morning. Several women sat at tables having brunch. When Margaret entered, conversations stopped. People looked at her. Then they looked away. Margaret walked to a table where 3 of her friends sat: Helen, Caroline, and Susan. They looked up when Margaret approached. "May I join you?" Margaret asked. Helen gestured to an empty chair. "Of course." Margaret sat down. A waiter came over and she ordered tea. The table was quiet. No one knew what to say. Finally, Susan spoke. "Margaret, we are all very surprised by what happened last night." "I am sure you are." "Did you really not know about Simone's company?" Carolina asked. "No, I did not know." Helen leaned forward. "But Margaret, why did you never ask her about her work? In 5 years, did you ever have a real conversation with her?" Margaret looked at her 3 friends. These women she had known for decades. "No, I did not." "Why not?" Susan's voice was gentle but firm. "Because I did not want to know. I had already decided who she was." The waiter brought Margaret's tea. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup. She looked around the dining room. Other women were watching her, whispering to each other. Margaret realized something. Her world had shifted. She was no longer the respected matriarch everyone admired. She was the woman who had been cruel to her brilliant daughter-in-law, the woman who had been proven wrong in front of 50 million people. She pulled out her phone. She found David's number. She pressed call. The phone rang 4 times. Then David answered. "Hello?" His voice was cold. "David, it is your mother. I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About Simone. About last night. I want to apologize." "Then you should have apologized 5 years ago." The line went dead. David had hung up. Margaret stared at her phone. The screen showed that the call had ended. David had hung up on her. She set the phone down on the table. Her hands were shaking. Helen reached across and touched Margaret's arm. "Are you all right?" "No, I am not all right." Caroline spoke quietly. "Margaret, what did you expect? You humiliated his wife in front of 30 people. And now the whole country knows about it." "I made a mistake." "You made many mistakes," Susan said, "for 5 years." Margaret looked at her 3 friends. "Are you all turning against me too?" Helen shook her head. "We are not turning against you, but we are not going to pretend this is acceptable. What you did was wrong." Margaret stood up. She picked up her purse. "I need to go." She walked out of the country club. The women at other tables watched her leave. Margaret got in her car and drove home to her empty mansion. 3 weeks passed. Simone went to her office every day. She worked with her team to expand the company. They hired 10 new engineers. A hospital in Toronto, Canada signed a contract to use the software. Then a hospital in London, England. Then one in Berlin, Germany. On a Tuesday morning, Simone sat in her office on a video call with doctors from the Toronto hospital. They were excited about implementing the software in their emergency department. "We have seen the data from Massachusetts General Hospital," one doctor said. "Your software catches problems that we miss. It will save lives here, too." After the call ended, Maria knocked on Simone's office door. "There is a reporter from Tech magazine here. She wants to interview you." Simone nodded. "Send her in." A young woman with red hair entered. She carried a recording device and a notebook. "Thank you for making time, Miss Mitchell. I am Jennifer Walsh from Tech magazine." They sat down. Jennifer set up her recording device on the desk. "Let me start by asking about the Innovator of the Decade Award. What does it mean to you?" "It means that our work is being recognized. But more importantly, it means that hospitals are paying attention to how technology can improve healthcare. That is what matters." "Your acceptance speech went viral. Everyone is still talking about it." Simone kept her voice calm. "I spoke my truth that night. But I do not want to discuss that anymore. I want to talk about the work we are doing. We are expanding into 3 new countries. We are developing new features that will help diagnose heart disease earlier. That is what people should be paying attention to." Jennifer asked more questions about the technology and the company's growth. She asked about being a black woman in tech. Simone answered honestly. "I face barriers that many of my white male colleagues do not face. Investors doubt me. Engineers question my expertise. But I let my work speak for itself. I encourage young women, especially young black women, to study science and engineering. We need more diverse voices in technology." The interview lasted 45 minutes. When Jennifer left, Simone went back to work. She reviewed code with James. She had a conference call with investors. She met with Maria about hiring plans. That evening, Simone gave a talk at a high school in Boston. 50 teenage girls filled the auditorium. Most of them were black or Latina. Simone stood at the podium and told them about her journey. "I grew up in Detroit, in a working-class family," Simone said. "My parents were not rich, but they believed in education. They saved money to send me to college. I studied hard, I worked hard, and I built something meaningful." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "Do people treat you differently because you are black?" "Yes. Some people make assumptions about me before I even speak. Some people doubt my abilities. But I learned something important. I cannot control what other people think. I can only control my work. So I work harder than everyone else. I build things that cannot be ignored. After the talk, several girls came up to ask more questions. One girl, who was about 16 years old, looked nervous. "Miss Mitchell, I want to study computer science, but my guidance counselor told me it is too hard. She said maybe I should pick something easier." Simone looked at the girl. "What is your name?" "Jessica." "Jessica, do not let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. If you want to study computer science, then study it. Work hard. Ask for help when you need it. Find mentors. But do not let anyone limit your dreams." Jessica smiled. "Thank you." Simone drove home to Cambridge feeling tired, but good. This was why she did this work. Not for awards or recognition, to show young girls that they could build important things too. When she got home, David was making dinner in their small kitchen. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. "How was the school talk?" David asked. "It was good. Really good." Simone sat down at the kitchen table. "Has your mother tried to call again?" "Yes, 3 times this week. I have not answered." "David, you should talk to her eventually." "I know, but I am still angry. She had 5 years to be kind to you." 5 years. Simone's phone buzzed with a text message. She looked at the screen. The message was from Rachel. "Hi, Simone. I know I already apologized over the phone, but I wanted to reach out again. Would you be willing to have coffee with me sometime? I understand if the answer is no, but I would really like to talk. Rachel." Simone showed the message to David. "Your sister wants to have coffee." "What do you want to do?" Simone thought about it. She remembered Rachel at family dinners. Rachel had never been cruel. She had never insulted Simone. But she had stayed silent when Margaret was cruel. She had looked away. She had pretended not to notice. But Rachel had apologized. She had acknowledged her silence. She had asked to do better. Simone typed a response. "Yes, we can do that. Are you free on Thursday afternoon?" Rachel's response came 30 seconds later. "Yes, thank you. There is a cafe on Mass Ave near your office. Cafe Luna. Does 2 o'clock work?" 2 o'clock works. "Thank you, Simone. I really appreciate this." Thursday afternoon arrived. Simone left her office at 1:50 and walked 3 blocks to Cafe Luna. It was a small place with wooden tables and large windows. Rachel was already sitting at a table in the corner. She waved when she saw Simone. Simone ordered a coffee at the counter and then sat down across from Rachel. Rachel looked nervous. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. "Thank you for coming," Rachel said. "You asked." I said yes. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Rachel spoke. "I need to apologize to you properly. In person. I am sorry for staying silent all those years. I am sorry for not defending you when my mother was cruel. I told myself it was not my place to get involved. But that was wrong. Silence is a choice, too." Simone listened. She sipped her coffee. Rachel continued. "I work at Massachusetts General Hospital. About 6 months ago, I started hearing doctors talk about new diagnostic software. Revolutionary AI that was helping catch problems earlier. I heard your name mentioned. I suspected it was your company, but I never asked you about it. Why not? Because I did not want to know. If I knew how brilliant you were and how much you were accomplishing, I would have had to confront my mother. I would have had to admit that she was completely wrong about you, and I was scared to do that." "Scared of your mother?" "Yes. My whole life I have tried to keep peace in the family. I avoid conflict. I stay quiet. It is easier." Rachel looked down at her coffee. But easier is not the same as right. Simone was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "I appreciate your apology. But Rachel, you need to understand something. Your silence hurt. Every time your mother insulted me and you said nothing, it hurt. Every time she excluded me and you pretended not to notice, it hurt. I know. I am so sorry. I am not telling you this to make you feel worse. I am telling you because if we are going to build any kind of relationship, it has to be based on honesty." Rachel nodded. "I understand. Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why did you keep your company secret from our family?" Simone thought about how to answer. "Because your mother had already decided who I was. She decided I was not good enough before she knew anything about me. If I had told her about my company and she watched me struggle at the beginning, she would have used it against me. She would have told everyone I failed. So I worked in silence. I built something real. Something she could not dismiss. And now everyone knows. Yes, now everyone knows." They talked for 2 hours. Rachel asked questions about the company. Simone told her about the software and how it worked. She told her about the hospitals using it. Rachel told Simone about her work in the emergency department. She told her about difficult cases and long shifts. By the time they finished their coffee, the conversation felt less awkward. They were not close friends, but they had started something, a foundation to build on. As they stood up to leave, Rachel spoke. "Can we do this again? Maybe once a month? I would like to get to know you better. The real you, not the version my mother made up." Simone considered this. She thought about forgiveness. She thought about second chances. She thought about the kind of person she wanted to be. "Yes," Simone said, "we can do this again." They walked out of the cafe together. Rachel hugged Simone goodbye. Then they went their separate ways. Simone walked back to her office, thinking about what Patricia had said to Margaret weeks ago. Silence is a choice. Rachel had chosen silence for 5 years, but now she was choosing something different. That mattered. 3 months passed. Simone and David stood in front of a large house in Cambridge. The house had 2 stories with big windows and a front yard with trees. A sold sign stood on the lawn. "This is ours," David said. He held the keys in his hand. Simone looked up at the house. It was so different from their small apartment. "It feels strange. A real house." "You can afford it. The company is worth $200 million now." They unlocked the front door and walked inside. The rooms were empty. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden floors. Sunlight came through the large windows. Simone walked through the living room to a smaller room at the back of the house. It had windows on 2 walls. A built-in bookshelf covered the 3rd wall. "This will be my home office," she said. "Perfect." David stood in the doorway. "When do the movers come?" "Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. They spent the rest of the day measuring rooms and planning where furniture would go. That night, they slept on an air mattress in the empty master bedroom. 2 weeks later, the house was full of furniture and boxes were unpacked. Simone and David decided to host a housewarming party. They invited Simone's team from work. David invited colleagues from his law firm. They invited Rachel. They did not invite Margaret. On Saturday afternoon, people started arriving. Maria came first with her husband and 2 children. James brought his girlfriend. Thomas came with a bottle of wine and a plant for the new house. Rachel arrived at 3 o'clock. She brought flowers and hugged Simone at the door. "The house is beautiful. Thank you for coming." More people arrived. David's colleague Lisa came with her partner. 2 engineers from Simone's team brought their families. Soon the house was full of voices and laughter. Children ran through the rooms. Adults stood in groups, talking and eating food from the kitchen. Maria found Simone in the kitchen, refilling a platter with cheese and crackers. "This is nice. A real celebration. It feels good to have people here who actually care about us." "Have you heard from Margaret?" "No, David talks to her occasionally now, but she has not tried to contact me." Thomas joined them in the kitchen. "Simone, I wanted to tell you. We just hired 2 more engineers. Both are women. One is black and one is Latina. They start on Monday." "That is wonderful. They both said they applied because they saw your interview in Tech Magazine. You are inspiring the next generation." The party continued into the evening. As the sun set, David made a toast. Everyone gathered in the living room with drinks in their hands. "Thank you all for coming today," David said. "This house represents a new chapter for me and Simone. We are building a life based on love and respect, and doing work that matters. We are grateful to have all of you in our lives." Everyone raised their glasses. Simone felt her throat tighten with emotion. She looked around the room at the people who had supported her. Her team, who worked beside her every day. David's colleagues who treated her with respect. Rachel, who was trying to build a real relationship. After the party ended and everyone went home, Simone, David, and Rachel sat on the back porch. The night was cool. Stars were visible in the dark sky. "I have news," Simone said. "We are opening a second office in San Francisco." "That is amazing," Rachel said. "When?" "Next month. We hired 15 engineers on the West Coast. I will travel there once a month to meet with them." David put his arm around Simone's shoulders. "The company keeps growing. We are also expanding the software. We are working with cancer researchers now. The AI can help detect cancer earlier by analyzing patterns in medical data." Rachel leaned forward. "That could save so many lives." "That is the goal." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Rachel spoke. "Can I ask you something? Do you ever think about my mother?" "Sometimes." "Do you hate her?" Simone thought about this carefully. "No, I do not hate her. I feel sorry for her. She let her prejudice stop her from knowing someone who could have been part of her family. She lost David's respect. She lost her social standing. She did all that to herself." Rachel nodded. "She calls me every week. She asks about you. She wants to know if you are doing well." "What do you tell her?" "I tell her you are doing incredibly well, that your company is growing, that you are changing healthcare, that you seem happy." "And what does she say?" "She usually gets quiet. Then she changes the subject." A month later, Simone flew to San Francisco for the opening of the new office. The space was in a modern building in the financial district. 15 new employees were there. Simone spent 3 days meeting with them and reviewing their work. On her last day in California, she received an email from a hospital in Seattle. The subject line said, "Urgent, remarkable results." Simone opened the email. A doctor named Jennifer Park had written it. "Miss Mitchell, I am writing to share extraordinary news. Your software has been in use at our hospital for 3 months. In that time, it detected early signs of cancer in 20 patients. The AI found patterns that our traditional methods missed. These patients started treatment 6 months earlier than they would have otherwise. All 20 are responding well to treatment. Your software saved their lives. Thank you for the work you do." Simone read the email 3 times. Then she walked to the window of the San Francisco office and looked out at the city. She thought about 20 people who were alive because of software she built. 20 families who would not lose someone they loved. She started crying. These were not sad tears. They were tears of purpose. This was why she built the company, not for awards or money or recognition, for saving lives. When she returned to Cambridge, David was working on a major case. He was defending voting rights for communities that were being excluded from elections. He worked long hours at his law firm preparing arguments. One night they sat together in their new house. David was reading case files. Simone was reviewing code on her laptop. "I understand now," David said suddenly. Simone looked up. "Understand what?" "What you always knew, that your work speaks louder than arguing with people who already made up their minds. I spent years trying to change my mother's opinion of you, but you just built something she could not ignore. I am doing the same thing now with this case. I am not arguing with people about why voting rights matter. I am building a legal case they cannot dismiss." Simone smiled. "You are learning." Rachel started coming to their house for dinner once a month. She and Simone were building a real friendship. They talked about work and life. They laughed together. They were honest with each other. One day in late spring, Simone arrived at her office to find a letter on her desk. Her assistant said it had been delivered by hand. No return address. Just Simone's name on the envelope in careful handwriting. Simone opened it. The letter was from Margaret. "Dear Simone, I am writing because I need you to know that I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. My pride and my prejudice blinded me to who you really are. I made assumptions based on where you came from and the color of your skin. I am ashamed of that now. You built something extraordinary. You saved lives. You proved that intelligence and determination matter more than family name or social status. I should have seen that from the beginning. I should have asked you about your work and your dreams. I should have welcomed you into our family. I understand if you never forgive me. I understand if you want nothing to do with me. But I wanted you to know that I recognize my mistake. I see now what David saw when he married you. I see what Rachel sees now. I see what the whole world sees. You are remarkable. I am sorry it took me so long to realize that. Margaret Mitchell." Simone read the letter twice. Then she folded it and put it in her desk drawer. She did not respond immediately. Maybe she would respond someday. Maybe she would not. The choice was hers now. That evening, Simone stood in her home office. The Innovator of the Decade Award sat on her shelf. Next to it was a framed photo of her team. Another photo showed her parents visiting from Detroit. Another showed her and David on their wedding day. She looked at these pieces of her life. She built something meaningful. She proved that dignity does not come from someone else's approval. It comes from knowing your own worth and doing work that matters. From the kitchen, she heard David and Rachel laughing. They were making dinner together. She heard them teasing each other about who was the better cook. Simone smiled. She walked out of her office and down the hall toward the kitchen, toward the people who loved her, toward the life she built. A life so full of purpose and joy that Margaret's opinion had stopped mattering at all. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen